Erik McKinney, joined as always by Marc Kulkin, Greg Katz. Guys, our five things here is after USC's 30-14 win against Washington State. Those five things: player of the game, play of the game, the expectation you had that was met in this one, our surprise from this one, and the biggest takeaway. So we'll start with the player of the game. Greg, go ahead and let's hear your pick.
Defensive all Pac-10 lineman, Tuli Palutu. Lotu, 3 sacks, 5 tackles. They lined him up everywhere, which way. He was dominant. Washington State had no answer for it, and he seemed to inspire the other players around him along the defensive line, and I thought he was magnificent.
Marc, let's go ahead. Your player of the game.
Yeah, it's hard to disagree with that one. In fact, what's so odd is I thought USC had more than 5 sacks. So Tuli had 3. Nick Figueroa had 2. So we'll give him the 1A player of the game. How's that?
Yeah, it looked like maybe Tyrone Taleni had 1. They called it a rush, and so only a tackle for a loss and not a sack. But I'm with you. It felt like 8-9, and Cameron Ward, he kind of runs all over the place anyway. But USC had him going. Tuli was my guy. Nick Figueroa, yeah, he's one of the guys too. I'll go sort of off the board, but I am going to stay on defense. Raylan Goforth led the team with 8 tackles, and it wasn't something where he's making huge plays, but he got thrown in there. Shane Lee is out, wrist injury, did not play. They had to go with a backup there, and Raylan Goforth, I thought, stepped up. At no point was there a play that I can remember where it was like, oh my gosh, Raylan's out of position, and that was his fault. And this is a tough offense for linebackers. They make them play side to side. They kind of empty the box, and there's a lot that they have to do there. So I liked what USC got from him in this one.
Not only that, I actually wrote down a note. There was a point in the game where Raylan made sure the guys are lined up correctly. He actually shifted somebody over, and on that play, I think Tuli got his 2nd sack of the game.
You know what I liked about Raylan is you could really tell on the field he really wants to play well.
Yeah.
He really is into it. He understands the situation he's in, and he's accepted the role. And when it was his turn to step up, he stepped up in a big way. And all the credit to him.
Yeah, he talked after the game, and he basically said, "Look, I prepare like I'm going to play 100 snaps in every game. If I play 100 or if I play 0, I'm going into everything with the same mentality." And he's had some plays this year where he'd want him again. And so for him to be put into that position, because that's part of it too. You're missing Shane Lee, you're missing a captain, you're missing a guy right in the middle of your defense. For him to give USC that kind of effort, that kind of production, I thought that was big. And I think we should throw Travis Dye, just a mention in here too. I like that we all went defense. I think it shows kind of what we feel about the defense right now. But Travis Dye goes over 100 yards again. He's at 149. He carried the ball 28 times, scored a touchdown, and another one called back. He's been kind of unbelievable as this spark plug for USC this year. So going to the second thing now, Greg, we'll go back to you, and that's the play of the game for you.
Well, I think the play of the game for me was when the score was close, and in the third quarter, Washington State blew up. They had, I think it was a holding penalty, and was immediately followed by a personal foul. And to me, that gave the Trojans a chance to continue on their drive and to get the score to, I think it was 24-14. I thought it was just a devastating bang chain of events for Washington State. And to SC's credit, they took full advantage of it. And I don't think Washington State ever recovered from it.
Marc, go ahead. Your play of the game.
Yeah, this one's going to be a little unique. I'm going to go with the play that Kalen got ejected on, because the way the team responded afterwards, and the coach, Lincoln talked about it afterwards. The fact that this team, everybody thought this was going to be an offensive, juggernaut that everybody else was going to have to contend with. This team's identity might be a physical defensive team. And for the team to be able to rally around and lose, one of their starters when they already had a starter not playing, to me, that sends a message that, all right, this team has enough depth that they can overcome challenges. And to me, to be able to stay in the game and just keep the defense going the way they did, it might not seem like a play of the game, but it changed the complexion of the game.
We went defense, a bunch of this. I'm going to go offense for my play of the game. And it's the Mario Williams sliding touchdown catch. That's on a 3rd and long right after a touchdown gets pulled off for a holding penalty. And it pushes the score from 17-14 all the way up to 24-14. That 10-point lead felt pretty big at the time based on how the USC defense had come out in the second half and done well. And Mario needed that. He had the first touchdown early where he's just wide open and Caleb kind of hands it to him on a deep ball. But then two drops, I think, fairly significant for him, and then comes back with that just unbelievable sliding catch. That was a big one, I think, in this game. We'll go third thing now, and Greg, that's back to you. The expectation that you had coming into this one that was met.
It would be a tough game. I thought it would be a little bit higher scoring game, personally. It didn't turn out to be that way. I mean, SC scores 30 points. That's still a lot of points for an average team, but SC is not considered an average team on offense. And I think that it was going to be a tough game, and it really was. I don't know if the score is really indicative of how tough it was. SC might have created a little bit of some problems for itself to make it a little tougher than it should have been. But it kind of went the way everyone kind of thought it would go, except for the amount of points scored, I thought.
Mark, your expectation that was met.
Oh, Travis Dye just running for $150. He probably could have had that in the first half had they stuck with the run a little bit more. But just, yeah, you knew that this team was going to be able to run against Washington State, and they ended up with over 200 yards, and it actually felt like they could have probably had more. But again, I'm nitpicking. So.
Yeah, I'm going to go with the USC defensive line giving Cameron Ward some problems and just making him sort of scramble and just be uncomfortable back there. USC ends up, we talked about the 5 sacks, 9 tackles for loss. And Cameron Ward, I don't know if he had very many clean pockets to throw from. And he's unbelievable, kind of scrambling to be able to throw. And he almost made one where he sort of shovel passes one for a near first down there. And so he made some plays, but this is a guy who threw for well over 300 yards against Oregon and against Cal. And he threw for 172 against USC, 19 for 32. And even without a turnover, without an interception, without a fumble, that's a stat line that I think USC would be pretty comfortable taking. And yeah, that USC defensive front, there's some holes in the run game. There's some things that other teams can take advantage of, but boy, they get after the quarterback and they get into the backfield now, and they were able to do that against Washington State. And Greg, for the fourth thing, let's go to the other side. What were you surprised at on this one?
I was surprised. First, the good news: Dennis Lynch hits 3 field goals. Okay, and that was 9 points in the game. 2 of those field goals came in the fourth quarter when the game was somewhat questionable. Not in doubt, but questionable. I was surprised they couldn't convert to touchdowns. I really was. It seemed to me that they got out of rhythm. Again, I thought there was some real questions between communications between the sidelines and Caleb. It seems like he's got so much responsibility, just making sure everybody's lined up right. And he keeps looking over at the sidelines, and he'll run to the center and then come back and take another look. And I think a couple of times it came back to bite him. But I think going forward, where the schedule is much tougher, they need to convert these scoring possibilities into touchdowns and not field goals.
Mark, you're surprised from this one?
No turnovers created, no takeaways, especially against a Washington State team. And you mentioned Cameron Ward. The guy had 7 interceptions coming into the game, and USC wasn't able to turn that switch. Maybe they made up for it. They shut him out in the second half. They had 5 sacks, maybe 6 if we really want to be technical about it. But yeah, to me, I think that was the biggest surprise, that I really thought USC would be able to turn these guys over at least a couple of times.
I'm going to go with USC offensive short yardage non-production. And I wrote a story this week about USC having come through 5 games basically perfect in short yardage situation. And I looked at, second, third, and fourth down with 4 yards or fewer, and then right there in on the goal line. and they'd turned 58 situations that I looked at into either eventual first downs, touchdowns, or field goals.
Yeah.
They had a third and very short where they tried Jordan Addison on kind of an end around, and he gets tripped up late. So USC did not do as well, nearly as well as they have on turning those kind of short yardage plays into keeping the ball moving downfield. They were 6 of 15 on third downs. They came in averaging well over 50% and at a better, hitting third downs at a better rate than that 2005 USC offense, the 2005 USC offense. 5 times in the red zone. You like 5 scores out of 5 trips, but just the 2 touchdowns, right? And Greg, you talked about having to finish drives with field goals. So that to me was a surprise, just for the USC offense. And I think we all kind of look at the USC offense sort of in a vacuum. It doesn't really matter who you're playing with. The talent there, you want to be able to do it. But Washington State has done well against that all year too. They create tackles for loss, and they just had 5 in this one. They were one of the national leaders there, sacks and tackles for loss, all of that. I think all in all, USC did well against what Washington State can bring there. But clearly some lulls in the offense, and the offensive players talked after the game. There's some things we still have to iron out. Brendan Rice kind of came out and said, we still have not played a full game offensively of, up to our standard of what we can do. Be interesting to see kind of what goes forward from there. And speaking of going forward, let's go to our 5th thing. And Greg, that's the biggest takeaway from this game as you look forward for USC.
Well, my takeaway is evaluations of who they play. The better the opponent, the more I'm seeing who they really are. I think when they played Rice, it was like, whoa, what an offensive juggernaut. And now you look, here we are playing Washington State. They're not quite the juggernaut that we thought they would be, although the statistics say they're scoring 40 points a game, but they're going to be playing better people. I think the defense is better now. I hate to say I'm getting used to it, because I have to remind myself, look at the scoreboard, dummy. That's really all that counts. And I look at the scoreboard, and there was only 14 points, and that's a good Washington State offense. They've got some skill there. But my takeaway is we're going to get a real sense at Utah. I was kind of up in the air. I wanted Utah to actually win today, because I didn't want them to be in a kind of a hurt dog mentality that, their season's on the line, really on the line next week. They've already taken a loss. So my takeaway is, whatever SC is, what I think they are now, they've got to be better next week in all phases. To be honest with you, it's going to be a real challenge.
Mark, your takeaway from this one?
Well, real quickly, I love the fact that we can call Greg a dummy now. So thank you for that permission. I think my biggest takeaway was how disciplined USC was compared to Washington State, who typically doesn't create a lot of penalties on their own. They had 11 for 105 yards or whatever that number was. USC was able to hold themselves to 5 penalties for 50 yards. So in this type of game, for USC to maintain that discipline, especially when their offense wasn't working as well as they would prefer, as well as they would have liked, to see the defense stay disciplined. I know I've been on a tangent, but to me, it was important to see that, because this team is showing that they can win in various ways. And if Caleb Williams isn't connecting with his wide receivers, you've got Travis Dye that can run the ball. And if the offense just isn't working, they can fall back on their defense.
My takeaway from this one is USC's offense just sleptwalked its way to 30 points, and USC just posted a ho-hum 30-14 win against a very good Washington State team. Lincoln Riley said that's one of the best 25 teams in the country about Washington State after the game. That is not something that we would have said about this USC team last year. I mean, the distance that they've covered, that USC has covered in just a year, and really less than a year, is, I think, remarkable. And the other thing for me would be the defense is playing so well. The ability for them to just get, carved up on 2 back-to-back drives. long drives, 8 plays for 92 yards and a touchdown, 5 plays for 75 yards and a touchdown. Then they come out 3 and out, 3 and out. They almost force the safety going into halftime, a 4-play drive for a punt. They turn them over on downs, punt, end of the game. That's how USC's defense ended the game. When Washington State scored that second touchdown, it looked like, that's got things tilted the other way. This USC defense, and there's no guarantee that they're going to go shut out Utah. Utah's a good offense. Every game is kind of its own thing. But there's a lot more belief, I think, in the locker room, and certainly for us right now, in this USC defense and how it's playing. You look every week and it's 14 points, 17 points, 21 points. The USC offense is not pressured at all, especially coming into the season. The thought for everyone was, they're going to have to win everything 56-54. And that just hasn't been the case. The USC defense they've given up some stuff, but boy, they've been impressive when it's really mattered. And every week they've done enough to where the offense can just kind of figure out how to score a few points and come away with, for the most part, outside Oregon State, fairly comfortable wins to this point in the season. So I don't know if we thought we'd be saying that 6 games into the year, but here we are, and USC is 6-0 after taking down Washington State 30-14, setting up, I think still we can consider a big one at Utah, even though Utah's got the 2 losses now this year, a big one for USC in the Pac-12 next week. So for Greg Katz, for Marc Kulkin, this is Erik McKinney. Thank you for listening to 5 Things. Thank you for watching WeAreSC.